Greetings, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the Miracle Center. Welcome, Lisa. Thanks for being here today. All right, you guys. We're going to start today just with a little bit of an opening meditation, just to bring our minds back to the present moment and just rest our minds for a moment. Radical concept. So, why don't you close your eyes and take a breath. And just invite your mind to come back home to the present moment. This perfect, powerful, precious moment now. And the Course tells us that the present moment is the closest approximation to eternity that you can find in time. And so we practice the holy instant. We practice tuning our awareness like a dial on a radio to the frequency and the vibration of the present moment. And in the present, we find all that our Creator has given us and created us to be. Complete, completion. Our eternal nature. Lasting peace. All the things that our Creator has given us and created us to be, we find and experience in the present moment now. And in the present moment now, we accept that we have remained exactly as our Creator created us. I am as God created me. I am complete. I am eternal, and I am free forever. I remain as God created me. I am deathless, timeless, and free. And I am only love. I accept myself as God created me. And notice how good it feels to simply be as you were created by love. And say to yourself silently, I am only love. I am wholly loving, and I am wholly lovable. And the Course tells us that this is how you must think of yourself in your heart. I am wholly loving and wholly lovable. This is how you must think about yourself in your heart. Because it's true. And knowing the truth about yourself sets you free from all that you perceive limits you. And just thank yourself for loving you enough to bring you today to listen to the loving truth about yourself. Thank you, self. Thank you for bringing me where I can hear the loving truth about myself and be around others who also want to hear the loving truth about themselves. Thank you, self. And thank you, God, for creating us complete and free and eternal. All right. And then when you're ready, just take a breath. Hi, sweetie. Good to see you. No worries. You're never late. You're right on time. All right. So where we're going to be at today is in the teacher's manual. And this is such a beautiful question that it asks. Such a beautiful section. In the teacher's manual, it is asking and answering many of the questions that we as students and teachers of A Course in Miracles come up with. This question is a great question. It's something that, it answers a question that, speaks to what we've all learned in the past, regardless of what religion or no religion that we all came up through. And we all came up through some version of a philosophy that basically said that we're going to be judged and that God is going to be judging us in the end. Dun, dun, dun. God's final judgment, in the Jewish religion that I was raised in, it was like, at the end of your life, you go before God the judge, right? And he's got that big old book of life. And, depending on how good you were this year, kind of like Santa Claus, maybe you get written in or maybe you don't. And so we all have come up with this through this belief and philosophy that we're going to be judged in the end. God's the one going to be judging us, and it could go either way, right? So, be on your best behavior. So this question is each one to be judged in the end? So we're going to answer this question. So,
did you give the question number?
Yes, number 15 in the teacher's manual. All right. I love the first sentence. Indeed, yes! Exclamation point. Yeah. Each one is going to be judged in the end. Yes. And the reason why it's a big yes is because no one can escape God's final judgment forever. No one can escape God's final judgment. Because who could flee forever from the truth? But the final judgment, God's final judgment, will not come until God's final judgment is no longer associated with fear. Oh, wow. Like, you mean you can perceive God's final judgment without fear? Like, who knew? Whoever heard of God's final judgment being something that you're not afraid of? Whoever heard of that? Right? We have associated God's judgment with fear. Right? Because we learned that, that God's judgment is to be feared, that God's judgment is, harsh, that God's judgment is, harsh. I mean, whoever heard? Yeah, eternally harsh. I mean, not just harsh, but like, damned to hell forever, God's final judgment won't come as long as we associate it with fear. So apparently, God's final judgment is not something to be feared. Who knew? Exactly. Don't have to worry about God's judgment. There's nothing to fear in it. And we're going to hear what God's final judgment is. And it says, and one day, everyone will welcome God's final judgment. And on that very day, God's final judgment will be given us. Okay? So it's something that we welcome. It's something that is waiting for us to welcome when we stop associating it with fear. And here, so each day says one day everyone's going to welcome it. Okay, and on that very day will be given you. And here's what you will hear on the day that you accept God's final say. Here's what it's going to say. Here's what you're going to hear. You will hear your sinlessness proclaimed around the world. So it's like twice around the world. And on this day, when you hear your sinlessness proclaimed around the world, then this judgment on you is going to set the world free as God's final judgment on you is received. So one day, every single one of us is going to accept God's final judgment on ourselves, which means we're going to accept God's final judgment of our sinlessness. And with no exceptions, not like sinlessness if you, when you, sinlessness, period. You are sinless. And we'll be like, is that it? Is that it? Yeah, you sinless. Really? You mean, what about what I did in high school, on prom night? Yeah, sinless, period. Yes.
Don't you think in a lot of ways we're more afraid of being recognized as sinless than we are as sinful?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ultimately. Yeah. Because notice how readily we are to accept that we're guilty or that we need to change, But when somebody says you're sinless, we're like, what's the catch?
Right.
What are you selling? Right? And didn't we learn, through whatever philosophy or religion we came up through, didn't we learn that sinlessness is the ultimate blasphemy?
That's right.
Like, the ultimate blasphemy, making you worthy of death. Like death punishment. And so now when we hear, and isn't it what we heard about the deceiver will come telling you that you're innocent, you're sinless, right? Isn't that what we all heard? That only the deceiver tells you that you're innocent, that you're sinless. And so now when we hear something say you are sinless, no questions, no exceptions. The Course says there's a chill of fear that goes through us. Like, whoa, this is the ultimate danger.
Right.
you know, to hear that is like the ultimate danger. And so that's why it's taking so long for us to accept that God's final judgment on us. That's why it's taking so long to accept our innocence and sinlessness. That of course in Miracles it says that is just the truth. It takes so long because we've been so programmed, I mean brainwashed by guilt. You know, we have been traumatized, brainwashed. I mean, we have massive cosmic PTSD. We have sin, trauma, PTSD. We have been told. What'd you say?
How else would we stay in this dream?
Exactly. Of course, says that is the nature of the dream. The nature of the dream is the belief in sin. It is the belief in guilt. You know, and so of course, you know, one of the core beliefs of this dream of this world is that to believe that you are sinless is the ultimate blasphemy, deserving death, where it makes you worthy of death, right? Yes.
There's also a parallel fear that I'm seeing right now, in that to be sinless, to accept my sinlessness, is also to accept that I'm not a body.
That's exactly right.
And until I stop valuing the body in this world for what I think it can give me, I'm going to have this parallel fear that I'm going to be sacrificing who I am to be sinless.
Right. That's exactly right. Very good. And that's why one of the major themes in the book is I am not a body. You know, I am not a body, I am free. Beautiful. So it says on that day, when you welcome God's final judgment on you, all you're going to hear is your sinlessness proclaimed around and around the world. And that proclamation of your sinlessness is going to set the world free as you accept it, as you receive it. Isn't that amazing? It's like, that's it? Okay. Now it says, and this is the judgment in which salvation lies. Okay. Now what is salvation? Salvation is the judgment that will set you free. So salvation means to be set free, right? I was lost, but now I'm found. I am free. I thought I was limited. I thought I was bound. I thought I was, not free because of all these limitations that I have. I'm not free because of money. I'm not free because of my body. I'm not free because of my health. I'm not free because of my relationship. I'm not free because of my shame and guilt. I'm not free because of my past. I'm not free to be happy. I'm not free to be healthy. I'm not free. So salvation is when you are set free from all that you think limits you. And apparently, the main thing that limits us and makes us feel like prisoners to the body and to money and health and all that and sickness is apparently that we haven't accepted the fact of our sinlessness. And so our perception of guilt makes for all these barriers and limitations and burdens and shackles. Apparently, that's where all those limitations come from. Because if by accepting my true sinlessness as judged by God, if that is what sets me free, then it has to be that only my belief in myself as guilty is what is making for all those seeming limitations that make me feel not free. Well, what is it that makes you feel not free? Hey, all of that is coming from the belief, the false belief that we are guilty. It all comes back to that. And if we did not accept, if we didn't believe our guilt, then, we would be free. There'd be nothing. We'd say, I'm imprisoned by this, I'm imprisoned by that, I'm held back by this, I'm limited by that. It all comes down to that.
And based on what you just read, the world would be free too.
And based on that, the world would be free the instant I accept it for myself. Wow, that is amazing.
Talk about changing the world.
What'd you say?
Talk about changing the world.
Exactly. Literally. I mean, you change your mind about yourself and the world changes as well. What does that tell you about where the world really is? That's what the Course says. It's a projection. The Course says the world is a projection. Isn't that deep? That means we are pretty powerful. Yes, Lisa.
I have a hard time understanding that concept.
Which one?
That when I change my mind,
Yes.
the world changes.
Yes.
I know that if I change my perception, then everything around me changes. But how do you reconcile that with the fact that there's still war, violence, hunger, and all things?
Right, exactly. The Course in Miracles tells us that the real world is what we would see, and the real world is also here right now to be seen. And that when you change your mind, you do see a different world. You would see peace. You would experience more peace. So it is exactly what you said. You said, I see how when I change my perception, the way I see the world changes. So that's what it's talking about. You would see war differently also. So, yeah. And this is one of those concepts where the Course in Miracles says you won't understand the truth of it until you use it. You can't understand this until you actually are using it. Then you go, oh, I see how when I changed my mind, I experienced a different world, or I experienced the world differently. See? But you'll never understand it just from reading the words. You'll be like, how can the world be just a projection? Yes.
One of the greatest examples I was given decades ago now was someone who has never traveled sees the world one way. And then they travel, and now they'll never see the world again the same way.
Exactly.
Right? So they go to another country and have now that experience, right? And that's what we are being asked is to expand our awareness of what actually is until we get to the point that we see the whole
Yes.
truth of the real world.
Exactly. And none of us has accepted yet perfectly our sinlessness, so we don't know exactly how the world is changed when we do that. But we can see that every time we practice accepting our sinlessness, that our life gets better and the lives of those around us get better, because here we are, more loving presence in their lives as well. And they're seeing something different and it's changing them for the better. Okay. Now, in this judgment on you that you are sinless, period, this is the judgment in which all things are freed. Wow. That's how you free everyone and everything. In you accepting God's judgment on you, that you are sinless, is everything freed. Everyone is freed. That's how freedom occurs. Okay. Well, and it says, this is the judgment in which all things are freed with you. Okay? Now, here's what happens as you accept God's judgment of your sinlessness on you. Here's what happens. Time pauses as eternity comes near and silence lies across the world, so that everyone may hear this judgment of the children of God. And this is the judgment. Holy are you. This is the judgment on the children of God. Holy are you all. You are all eternal. you are all free, and you are all whole, which means complete, which means lacking nothing. You are at peace forever in the heart of God. This is God's final judgment on everyone. That's it. That's God's final say. God's like, this is the last time I'm going to say this. So listen up. This is my final word. Wow. Okay. And then it asks a question. Okay, if you are holy, you're eternal, you're free and complete, and you're at peace forever in the heart of God, well, where is the world and where is sorrow now? So once you accept God's final say on you, then what happens to the world and what happens to sorrow? Bye-bye. It's replaced by the real world. A world where there is no death, you know, where there is nothing to fear, there is no death, there is no loss. You know, you experience reality in place of the world of sorrow and death that you experienced before. Yes.
And part of the problem I think we have in seeing the new world is we get caught in trying to do it on our own. We can't. We're the one that came up with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
We need help.
Exactly. We can't see the real world by ourselves. Yeah, exactly. And so I love it. I love, and so as you hear this final judgment on you, time pauses. It's so interesting. So when you are, truth undoes time. And that's the metaphysics, some of the metaphysics of the Course that you don't really understand until you are like experiencing. You're like, okay, whoa, I just was experiencing the truth, and then time seemed to, the regular order of time seemed to go away, right? So when you hear the truth about yourself, you are pausing time. Time pauses, and then silence lies across the world so that everyone may hear this judgment on them. And so I love it. It says, holy are you, okay? And I always, when I read that word, I'm like, oh, what is it? I don't like that word. What does that mean, holy? Right? It's like, and because I bring my own past meaning about holy from the past. And my past meanings about holy are sacrifice, sacrificial, boring, only for a few, definitely not for you. No one ever accused me of being holy. Quite the opposite. That girl is definitely not holy. But I love the Course in Miracles definition of holy. What does holy mean? It means you are eternal, you are free, and you are complete. Meaning you're lacking nothing. You are lacking nothing. You're free, you're eternal, and you're complete. That's what it means to say that you're holy. Okay. I like now that I can relate to, that I can be, right? So that is what God's final judgment on all of us is. That's it. Nowhere is there like you need to account for what you did. We know what you did. There's no accounting of what you did. There's no itemizing of your errors at all. There's not one single bit of like, well, you kind of like, we're not really loving enough or generous enough, and you were kind of mean. I mean, there's just not anything. It literally does not at all acknowledge anything that we are sitting here judging ourselves and each other for. It's like maybe, yeah, sure, I could accept that for myself, but that can't be true about you know who. And my long list of you know who's. Who that definitely cannot be true for. You know, that means they just get off scot-free. Yeah, but that means you get off scot-free too. Yes.
You know, this is really helpful for me today because someone I talked to, therapist, is wanting me to purge all the things that I did
Mm-hmm.
in my youth,
Mm-hmm.
and each one.
Wow.
I mean,
You're gonna be busy.
you know, like
You're gonna be
5,000
you're gonna be real busy
before
doing a lot of purging.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah. And
You know,
apparently,
I just don't
it-
want to sit there in front of him and say,
I did
well,
this.
you know, I slept with, you know, or whatever.
Right, exactly.
You know, and
Mhm.
I have journals of when I was, you know, younger and
Mhm.
all of the
Confessions.
escapades and all
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe I want to go back, but I'm fearful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to go back and read them and
Mhm.
then pour
Mm.
honey on them and burn them or
Mhm.
something. You know,
Mhm.
burn them with love.
Well, according to this,
I don't have
none
to.
of that is absolutely necessary. Not even one drop of it. And you know, it's like for myself, it's like I'm seeing that my problem, one of my problems or resistance to accepting the truth about myself is that I still want to make exceptions to that final judgment for others.
Right, and you know,
It's
see,
like, you know,
I mean, I guess I could go to confession and sit in the box with the priest on the other side and say, you know, I ran over a cat or whatever.
you
know?
did what?
But
I can't.
it's kind of the same thing. So if people in that religion believe maybe that when I confess my sins,
Mhm.
then I have a better chance
Right.
of going to heaven.
Right, exactly.
You know,
And this literally is saying that God doesn't care about that. God's like, doesn't mean anything to God. Your sins, your errors, your whatever it is that you were told that you were bad for. Whatever it is that you were told that you were bad, that made you bad, that made you guilty, whatever you believe that made you bad or guilty, there is not one iota of any attention to that at all.
God doesn't see in you.
No, not at all.
God isn't a dual God,
Exactly.
and He perceives you as He created.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So, the story made me laugh because I grew up, my best friend's family was Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up, she would go to the Baptist church with me and I'd go to the Catholic church with her. And she got in trouble because she made up sins to tell the priest because she didn't have any that she could think of. So she made up sins.
Oh, but that's a sin, you know. You say, I love it. Carla's telling a story about her friend in childhood who was Catholic and who wanted to make up some sins to confess because she didn't have any sins to confess. That's hilarious, which is a sin.
Right?
Yeah, that's like the biggest sin of all.
Right? Isn't that what we do?
Exactly, and that's why she made up. That's why she thought she had to make up sins because being sinless was the bigger sin.
Right.
It seems like you don't have to be accountable for anything. It's kind of
And that's the thing, that's one of our resistances to accepting the truth is because we're telling ourselves that means somebody's going to get away with something.
including myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So I-
Exactly. You know. And then it is so shocking to hear that God does not that sin is a man-made concept. That sin has nothing to do with God at all. It's so shocking. It's like, what do you mean? You know, like there's no sin or What does that mean? That everybody can just do whatever they want and get away with it and not have to face judgment and punishment, and you can just do whatever you want? You know, it's so shocking. Like I said, there's a cold chill of fear that goes through us when we hear the truth about ourselves. And ultimately, it is, then he goes on to say that basically preparing yourself to hear this and to accept that is why you're here. So, but we'll get to that. So then that was just one paragraph. I looked down, figured we would be at the end of the section. That was one paragraph. And the Course in Miracles is so deep. Now, funny question. Is this your judgment on yourself, teacher of God? But a little pop quiz here. Is there anybody who this is their complete judgment on themselves? I'm eternal, I'm free, I'm complete, and I'm at peace forever in the heart of God. Okay, just doing a little pop quiz here. Just checking in. It says, is this your judgment on yourself, teachers of love? Do you believe that this is wholly true? No. Not yet.
It's not yet twice.
And then it goes, not yet, twice. No, not yet. And no, not yet. But to accept this judgment on yourself, that this be your judgment on yourself, this is still your goal. This is why you are here. Whew-wee. My judgment on myself is the exact opposite. My judgment is I'm not holy, okay? I'm not eternal, and I'm not free, and I'm not complete. I got a lot of needs to prove it. And I'm pretty sure that I live in Colorado, not forever at peace in the heart of God. I'm pretty sure I live in Denver, you know, in a traffic jam, in this body that is gonna die, you know, and complete, having no lack, having no need. Yeah, that'd be nice. That sounds nice. The Course asks you, try to think of, even for a moment, imagine what it would be like to have no needs. That always blows my mind. I'm like, what would that be like? Have no needs.
Is that heaven?
Yes, that's right. And that's what it says. It says heaven is a state of mind where you have no lack or need. That's what heaven is. It's a state of mind where you're like, hey, I don't need anything. And a holy instant is where you practice tuning into the reality and feeling the experience of, I have no needs right now. It's like we have to practice that. What would that feel like? Okay. But it says, so he says, is this your judgment on yourself? No, obviously not yet. But it's still your goal. It's why you're here. As a matter of fact, it is your function to prepare yourself to hear this judgment and to recognize that it's true. That's our function. That's why we're here. That's our function, to prepare ourselves to not just hear it, but also to accept it. And apparently, like it said in paragraph 1, eventually every single one of us, no exceptions, I don't care if you're Hitler, you know, or whatever, or whoever is the current Hitler, okay? Everyone will accept this truth for themselves. They will. It's not a maybe, it's not an if, it's a when. It's a given, you know. And then it says, and then it says, is going to happen eventually. Our function is just to make it happen sooner than later. And it says, and just one instant of complete belief in God's judgment on you, and you will go beyond belief to certainty. Whew. He said 1 instant. Apparently, I haven't even had 1 instant yet. it was like, how long you been studying this course? I haven't even had 1 full instant. One instant of complete belief in that. Isn't that deep? Wow. But the more I practice it, the better my life becomes.
Right.
Yes, maybe I have not gone beyond belief to complete certainty, but I do recognize that my life gets better every single time I allow myself to hear it and to practice accepting it. You know, my life gets better. It gets more free. That's what it means for life to get better. Your life becomes more free. I feel more free. I'm more free. I'm gonna have more freedom, more free to be me. Okay? So, and then it says, because 1 instant out of time can bring time's end. Woo! 1 instant out of time can bring time's end. That's pretty powerful. That's how powerful the truth is. The truth literally stops or ends time. That's how powerful the truth is. Imagine what truth can do to your problem. I mean, if truth can stop or end time itself, then what can truth do to this problem, this limit that I perceive?
Would that instant out of time be the holy instant?
Yes, exactly. And the 1 instant out of time is the 1 instant of complete belief in God's judgment on you. Okay. So it's like, so there's truth and there's time. And they're different. And one ends the other. One ends the other. And I love that because I have so much fear around time, like wasting time. I don't have enough time, and I'm wasting time. And, you know, I have less of time. You know, time's going by too quick. I need more time. I'm late again. Late again. So, I love that. So it says, so don't judge. It says, judge not, because you but judge yourself. And every time you judge yourself, you are delaying love's final judgment on you. Ooh, every time I judge, which I can't really do because I'm not God, I'm delaying God's judgment on me. Wow. She says, so, and by the way, teachers of love, what is your judgment on the world? Let's see. Let's do a little inventory, shall we? It's unfair. It's cruel. It's cold. You know, it's hard. Life is hard. You know, there's not enough to go around for everybody. You know, our judgment on the world is, you know, he says, what's your judgment on the world? You heard what God's judgment is. What's yours?
No pain, no gain.
It's no pain, no gain. Life is hard. You know, love hurts. People are cruel. You know, that's our judgment. That's why he says, don't stop judging. You know, your judgments are, look at your judgments compared to God's. So stop judging. He says, so yeah, what is your judgment on the world, oh teacher of God? Have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of judgment in yourself? Or, teacher of God, do you still attempt to take God's role from God? Drum roll. It's like, oops. Yes.
I think they hit the spot. I want to get back to what you were saying, looking back at your life and what you judge with sins, the things you did. We're taking God's role and we're judging that. Don't judge. And
Yeah.
if you do want to look at it, okay, everybody's looking for happiness.
Yes.
Love and love.
Exactly.
Everything you did.
That's right.
was with a prideful love, an extension. of love.
Exactly.
So there's no judgment.
Exactly.
So we want love. The basic thing is love.
That's right.
You know, all this final judgment, everything. The only judgment God said is, I love you.
Exactly.
This is my beloved son. I love you no matter what. You know, do you love me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's God's final judgment. Yeah, you are only love. That's it.
I love you.
You're love. I love you. You love me. That's it. You are only love. That's God's final judgment. And I love that. He just so puts us in our place in such a loving kind of way, you know. It's like, you know, you've just been put in your place, but it was loving. Only God can do that. I love it. So, talking about judgment, and he says, don't judge, because all you're doing is delaying God's final judgment for you. And he says, don't judge, because have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of love in yourself? Have you? Hell no. No, I mean, yeah, I have my moments, you know, call it a holy instant, you know, where a miracle happens when I have like, oh, I think I'm going to do something different and not judge.
Right.
And I'm going to learn to be quiet. You know, I have my moments where I'm learning more and more and to do something different, instead of judging what this means and what should happen and why they're doing that and what it means about them and what it means about me and what should be happening here. You know, all those judgments. I'm learning to do what it said, where it says, learn to be quiet. So the other alternative to doing the thing that you have been doing all along that's causing all the problems, called judging when you're not God, is the alternative is to learn to be quiet. It's like, what? and that's perfect timing.
Little mind emphasis there.
Exactly. The ego just took your purse and threw it on the floor when I said learn to be quiet. He was like, I'm not going to be able to learn to be quiet. So I'm telling me to be quiet. Remember when you were a kid and they were like, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet.
So rather than judge, we're still trying to judge, even judge it rightly, but rather than judge, just relinquish judgment by
Yes.
just being quiet.
Exactly.
And that way we're not putting out to the universe what we don't want back. We're cutting the loop.
Exactly. That's exactly right. We're cutting the cord, you know, the loop where you put out your judgment and then you go forward in time and you meet your judgment, you know.
The perception.
Yes.
Now you're trying to deal with it all over again.
Right.
Not judging.
Right.
And just being quiet is a remedy to, you know, when Jesus was before Pilate was amazed because of all the accusations being brought against him. He remained silent.
Yes. I love that it's giving us the alternative. So it says, right, have you yet learned to stand aside and hear the voice of love in yourself? Or do you still attempt to take God's role from God? That's what judgment is. I'm attempting to take God's role from God. That's why you feel guilty every time you judge.
That's the whole apple analogy.
That's exactly right. That's a whole apple, taking a bite of the apple.
Yeah.
That's right. Eating of the fruit of knowledge is like, I'm God. I know enough to judge. I created that person, so I can judge them. You know, that's right. And it wasn't God who kicked us out of the garden. It was the guilt we felt when we usurped God's throne, kicked God off the throne. I'm God. I know enough to judge, right? And the guilt you feel, you can't judge a child of God who you didn't create and not suffer guilt. That's a given. And so then you will throw yourself out of the garden of plenty, the garden of no need, no lack. Yes?
I always thought about what he said about the quiet, being quiet.
Yeah.
You know, the mind is constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Stories. Look at that, or he shouldn't do it that way, or he should be doing this.
All judgment.
And to me, one of the things of being quiet is being an observer.
Yes.
You don't judge, you just look at it.
Yes,
You just
exactly.
look at it, and don't make any judgment on it.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, the mind quiets down, and you see, wow, it's beautiful.
Exactly. And then what it says, so instead of judging and attempting to take God's role from God, learn to be quiet. Why? Because God's voice is heard in stillness. So it's, instead of judging, the alternative is to be quiet and to listen to the voice of love that you will always hear whenever you are still, when your mind is still. And I like what you're saying, Bill, that when you're not judging, your mind is still. And the monkey mind that we all know all too well is the judging mind. It's this belief that I have to judge in order to somehow order or organize my life, or to make myself safe, or to demonstrate how much I know. I have to judge. Like, say, no, you don't have to judge. You're not. It's not like if you don't judge, you'll die. Well, we feel like if I don't judge, I won't have oxygen to breathe. I'll die. You're like, no, you don't need judge. You don't need judgment to be safe. You don't need judgment. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, on a practical level, I have an 18-year-old son, and I know it's a shocker, but sometimes we argue.
What? I cannot believe what I'm hearing.
So, and of course, I'm always trying to justify, and then it just makes things worse, and things escalate. So next time we get into an argument, I'm just going to be like Jesus. I'm just gonna he's gonna be shocked.
He's going to be shocked. He's going to be like, what is that place you went to last Sunday? and can you go back? Exactly. Can I go? And I think you should go back more often, Mom.
I have a 17-year-old granddaughter. Same thing.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's amazing too, what you say, oh, I hear what you're saying, I see what you're saying. Exactly. Listening is one of the greatest gifts, healing gifts of love that we give to another human being, is just listening.
It is really important also to recognize the word silence here represents not just keeping my mouth shut.
That's correct.
Right, that silence is also of the mind.
Yes.
Right, and so often I can be not saying anything, but I'm saying it.
Oh, hell yeah. Judging.
It
Yeah.
is coming to that place wherein I'm literally allowing myself to be so blank that I'm a receptor.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for saying that. You know, that stillness is the absence of judgment, you know, so that even if you're not judging out loud, but your mind is full of judgment, you're not quiet.
Just to pick up on that, the other reason why that's important, not just to acknowledge that there's the two levels of with that. But to the extent that I'm biting my tongue, but still having this internal judging dialogue, I am increasing the separation in my own mind.
Yes.
I am increasing the disintegration of my own mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And if judgment means I am attempting to take God's role from God, then that means that every judgment I have, I'm giving myself more belief in sin, guilt. And what is guilt? What does the Course in Miracles tell us about guilt? It is an unconscious request for punishment. So every time I judge, I'm going to feel guilty because I'm trying to take God's role from God. And then I'm going to unconsciously request guilt. You know? So you can see how learning to, look, what does he says? Have you yet learned to stand aside and listen and hear the voice of love in yourself? So there's the practice. I'm learning to step aside from judgment. I'm learning to step aside and listen and hear the voice of love that is in myself, by the way. It is within me, thank God. Thank God. Otherwise, I'd lose it. As all my friends know, if it's not attached to me. So that's what we're learning. Have you yet learned to stand aside and listen, and to learn to be quiet and listen for love's voice within you that can only be heard in stillness? Love's voice in us can only be heard in stillness. I can't hear love's voice telling me the truth about myself, releasing me from guilt, while my mind is not still. And my mind is not still if I am judging. And so you can know whether you're judging or not, whether your mind is still. Is your mind still? Or is your mind anxious? Or is your mind frenetic? Okay. All right. It says, I love it. It says, so learn to be quiet instead of judging, instead of trying to be God and make yourself guilty. Learn to be quiet because God's voice is heard in stillness. And God's loving judgment comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening and wait for God. So there's the alternative to judgment, to judging and making yourself feel guilty and unconsciously attracting punishment from the universe. Is it says, I love it. So God's loving judgment comes to all who stand aside in quiet listening, stand aside in quiet listening and wait for God. How beautiful is that?
That's the ultimate trust in God.
That's the ultimate trust in God. And it has the ultimate payoff, the ultimate benefit. Wow. Okay, because if you're judging, then all you get is guilt and punishment. But if you're standing aside and quietly listening for love's voice in yourself, then you get to hear your sinlessness proclaimed around the world. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds good, don't it?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a better experience of the world than we're even having now?
Could I then equate that if I judge, I'm admitting I don't trust God?
Yes. When I'm judging, I'm admitting I don't trust God. Exactly. I don't trust God. I need to be God. And I mean, when you hear it, you're like, dang, judgment is that's so arrogant. Like that's the epitome of arrogance. But we don't see that yet. We don't see how our judgments are arrogant, the epitome of arrogance, right? Not to mention self-sabotaging, right? Okay, So, and then I love it. It was asking us earlier to like, well, what's your judgment on the world, teacher of God? You know, you just heard God's, what's yours? And so paragraph 3 kind of talks about our judgment on the world. It says, you who are sometimes sad, you who are sometimes angry, you who sometimes feel your just due is not given you, and you who feel that sometimes your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt. Anybody recognize that? Anybody experience any of those things? That completely, perfectly described me. Broken into by the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. So you are sometimes sad, you are sometimes angry, you who sometimes feel your just due is not given you and your best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt. Give up these foolish thoughts. All those thoughts that I'm not appreciated. No, I'm not given my fair due, my just due. My best efforts meet with lack of appreciation and even contempt. Wow. He said, you should give up those foolish ideas. All those ways that I feel like a victim, unappreciated, unheard, ungotten. He said, those are foolish thoughts and you should give them up. But what if they're true? Apparently they're not. And aren't you glad?
Thank God.
Wouldn't you be glad to be wrong about, feeling like, you're not given your just due and your best efforts meet with contempt? Okay, it says, give up those foolish thoughts and give them up because they are too small and meaningless to occupy your holy mind an instant longer. They are too small and too meaningless to occupy your holy mind. Your mind is holy. Like, your mind is holy. Why are you thinking those silly, small, foolish thoughts like that? Your mind is holy. God himself is in your mind. God himself is in your mind, giving you your truth that not only sets you free, but also sets the world free. And you're upset about what? You're upset about what? You're the light of the world. God is in your mind, ready to set you free and the whole world with you, and you're worried about what? They said, give up those small, foolish ideas. They're too small and meaningless to occupy your holy mind an instant longer. Because God's judgment is waiting for you. So why are you worried about all that silly, foolish, meaningless, small stuff? God's judgment is waiting for you to set you free. That's what's really going on. You're like, I'm not appreciated. They don't appreciate me. Wah, wah, wah. God's judgment is waiting for you to set you free. I know, but they were mean to me. They didn't say thank you. And I'm upset about that. Wow. I just feel like Spirit's just like putting us in our place. And it says, and what can the world hold out to you regardless of your judgments on its gift that you would rather have than being set free and the world set free with you? What is it that the world is holding out to you that you think is going to give you a better deal than being set free? You think this little grievance, you think your little judgments, your grievances, your upsets, some power, fame, physical pleasure, you think that is going to offer you something better than being set free forever? Wow, but that's the way we think. We're like, this little grievance, is what I want. This is what I want. It's like, you do, that is what you want when you could, when God's answer to you is waiting for you to set you free forever in the world with you, but you would rather have this teeny little meaningless upset, irritation about how somebody didn't appreciate you, you know, even after 1,000,000 times of you not appreciating them. You know, it's like, he's like putting it out there and showing us how incredibly small and meaningless are the upsets that occupy our mind. They're not even true. And we're saying no to heaven just to have those meaningless, untrue, little tiny judgments about how people should be doing something different. They should be different. They should be treating me different, seeing me different, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. They should be doing something different for me. Right, and then I'd be happy, you know. And I'm letting that occupy my mind, which could literally, my mind contains the answer that sets me and the world free. My mind contains that. But I'm allowing these meaningless, untrue things to occupy my mind. As if something of the world can offer me more than freedom that I experience and that world experiences with me. Wow, that's really deep. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things setting free is every judgment is a projection.
Every judgment is a projection.
Somebody
That's right.
is reflecting what's in us.
That's exactly right.
And the reason for that really good is the way God set us free is dig down in the unconscious.
Yes.
What am I judging in myself?
Yes.
And when you see that, it'll be done. You won't judge the other person because you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sets you free.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you do that often enough, pretty soon you don't judge. You just
That's right, exactly.
Free at last. Free
it-
at last.
free-
Without judgment. Yeah.
Free at last, free at last. It's so funny to think that what I am feel limited by really is just my judgments. You know, the judgment I put on another person is another limit that I put on myself that says, well, I can't be happy or good enough unless I too, you know, do that thing that I'm judging them for. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, well, you know, you're not loving enough, or you're not good enough if you don't blah, 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 or you're not a good enough person if you do blah, blah, blah. Well, I just put that restriction on myself. Now I am not a good enough person unless I blah, 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 blah. You know, it's just another chain and restriction and limitation I put on myself as to why I can't be happy right now.
So, just to underscore Bill's point there, it's my judgments that are leading me to sometimes be sad. It's my judgments that are leading me to sometimes be angry.
Yes.
And to feel like my just due is not given me, and to feel unappreciated.
Exactly.
It's all my judgments, and it's those judgments that are sustaining my dream of being here.
That's right.
I just want to quote a quick line from last week in The Hero of the Dream, and that's, for you would not react at all to figures in the dream if you knew that you were dreaming.
That's right. Exactly.
And so if I recognize that my judgments are causing my dreaming, and for me to forget that I'm the dreamer, the key to awakening lies in that information.
Yeah, exactly.
And that recognition.
That's right. Exactly. That is the key to that sets us free. That's the key to sets us free, is accepting God's judgment and learning to stand aside and listen for love's judgment, you know, instead of judging. You know, that's the key to our freedom. And that's what ends all of our problems. It's so beautiful. And it says, right, what can the world hold out to you, regardless of your judgments on the world's gifts, that you would rather have than freedom, than being free? You know, what can the world offer you that's going to be a better deal? And it says, you will be judged, and you will be judged in fairness and in honesty, because there is no deceit in God. That's because God's promises are sure. Only remember that God's promises are sure, that you will be judged, and you'll be judged in fairness and in honesty, and apparently lovingly. And God's promises have guaranteed God's judgment, and God's judgment alone will be accepted in the end. So that's God's guarantee. It's guaranteed that you're going to accept love's judgment for you in the end. He says, now it's your function to make that end be soon. Like, how about now? How about now? Right? That's our job as teachers of love. Our job is to accept the inevitable now, instead of waiting to accept the inevitable. If it's inevitable, why are we putting off the acceptance of what's inevitable? You know, love's judgment on you is inevitable. You accepting once and for all love's judgment on you, that's inevitable. You're going to, because you can't run away from God forever. You can't escape from God. You know, God is life. God is you. So it says, it's your function to make that end, that inevitability be soon. It is your function to hold love's judgment in your heart. This judgment, you're holy, you're free, you're complete, you're eternal, and you exist in peace in the heart of God. It's your function, our function, to hold this judgment in our heart. To think about that in your heart, and to offer it to all the world, to keep all the world safe. Ooh, isn't that beautiful? So it's not my job to judge others. It's my job to hold this judgment in my heart and offer it to all the world, to keep the world safe. This is how you keep the world safe. Yes.
You know, for those of us who are parents, right, I think it's easy to say, how do I keep my child safe?
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think about that constantly.
Me too.
Adult children and
Me too.
grandchildren, right? And this is the answer.
This is the answer.
Right? This is how I
That's
keep my
exactly
child
right. This is exactly right. You know, I as a mother, you know, have always been, that was my number one concern as a mother, was how to keep my kids safe. You know, it's my number one wondering. And what I learned from A Course in Miracles was that the main way I could keep my kids safe was to make sure that she did not feel guilty. You know, and that, yes, you know, errors are for correction, but your errors do not mean you're guilty. And because the Course taught me that if my daughter felt guilty, then she's going to unconsciously request punishment from the universe. You know, and so, you know, that was my thing. It's like, you're innocent. Yes, you can be mistaken. Yes, you're learning. Errors are for correction, not for punishment. So it's so beautiful. This is the way to set yourself free from whatever you feel limits you. And it's also the way that you keep the world safe. Whew. And what more valuable gift can you give to humanity than that, than to keep it safe? Okay. And the only way that you can let yourself be set free and keep the world safe is to hold love's judgment on you in your heart and give it to the world. Offer it to the world. And let us review what that judgment is. Since it does all that, I think I might want to remember that. You would think that we would have this, we should memorize that. That's what we're supposed to do. Memorize it. Hold it in your heart. Memorize it. Holy are you. You are holy. You are eternal. You are free. And you are whole. You are complete. You're not missing anything. And where you're really at, whether you believe it or not, is you are at peace forever in the heart of God. Wow. That's the judgment, God's final judgment on you and everyone, that it is telling us to hold it in our heart and offer it to all the world. Wow. So write that down on a sticky note and stick it on your mirror. You know what I'm saying? Be a big improvement for what you have been judging when you looked in the mirror. When you look in the mirror and you're tempted to judge yourself, have that little sticky note right there.
Today I do not want to steal God's role.
Exactly. Today I will not attempt to take God's role from him and be God. Yes.
No, I like that when you kept saying, keep it in your heart. You translate that in modern day quantum physics is your level of consciousness. If you really believe that God's final judgment is love for yourself, that level radiates, you lift the whole level of consciousness in the universe, every little bit.
Exactly. And that's what it's saying. It's literally just keeps saying over and over, every time you accept that loving judgment for yourself, you literally are offering it to the world and keeping the world safe. Like doesn't the world seem like a dangerous place? It seems so dangerous. It's like seems like hell. Seems like, oh my God, my beloved and myself could die any number of ways before breakfast. You know, and so to give the world safety has got to be the ultimate gift to give to humanity. And think about how you're going to feel about yourself if you are keeping humanity safe.
So this says that ultimately being self-centered is how, but it's being appropriately self-centered.
Yes,
So
right.
being self-centered in this knowledge that I am this. It's not even asking me to project this upon the world. It's asking me to believe it for me.
Exactly.
And so focusing on me, and I think that one of the things that we often do is we get given these beautiful nuggets of how to move forward, but because it doesn't give us something to do outward,
Right.
right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, but I need to, in order to be valued in this world, I need to go do whatever that is, right? And this is telling us to focus on ourselves, and that's real hard in our belief systems.
That's right.
But there are 365 workbook lessons, many of which ask us to do these things, you know, offer our God's blessing to others, to do things out in the world, change the way we look at them. It does give us.
That is true, but this tells us it starts with how I focus on me.
That's right.
Right, and so if I'm doing those workbook lessons, but I haven't done this, those workbook lessons are gonna go very far.
That's exactly right.
And so I too have to start, healing starts with me.
That's right. Exactly.
And really, when you say me, you're saying everybody.
That's right.
Everyone.
That's right.
Because there's no separation.
Yeah.
Me
There's
is,
no separation.
Now, doing that, There's just no separation.
That's right.
There's no separation, but we often, when we're in that guilt mind space, we perceive the separation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really calling out that self-love and self-acceptance as the mechanism that step towards
Mm-hmm.
healing the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and look what we accomplish within ourselves and healers for the world through learning to be quiet, learning to stand aside from judgment. You know, learning to be quiet means don't judge, you know. So, you know, we're like, oh, like you were saying, I got to do something to be somebody. I got to do something to be somebody. And it's like, no, actually, everything real is accomplished through silence, through listening to God's word about you, what God says about you.
Right.
And what
Seeing
God...
it and believing it.
Exactly. And then the Course in Miracles tells us that the sole function of the miracle worker is to accept this truth for themselves. That's it. That's it. You know. And it's like, you don't have to do all the stuff that we think we have to do to be somebody. I need to be somebody. You do? Oh. What do you mean wait a minute.
But I do think that the workbook lessons as a practice helps us to accept holding these truths in our heart.
Yes.
By applying
That's
them,
right.
it helps me to see that this is worth holding. in my heart.
Yes, that's right.
And if you look at the lessons, they're all central focused. I am fully sustained by the love of God, right? It is God's love that, right? And so they are all centrally I focused.
Yes, that's
and
right.
then expressed through us.
That's right. That's exactly right. Wonderful. Great section today. Isn't that amazing section?
Amazing amount of useful information in 3 paragraphs.
Absolutely. It's like, who was it saying? One of the comments was, she says, Liliana said, good practice for this week. So I like it that we heard a good practice, like we heard a spiritual practice, you know, like meditation is a spiritual practice. We've heard in here the spiritual practice, one of them that A Course in Miracles gives, that sets us free and enables us to keep the world safe. Two pretty valuable things. Yes, dear.
I've got a little creative idea. I don't know if people will think it's strange, but, you know, we could take this and put it in our Christmas cards. Or we
Oh.
could write something and not put A Course in Miracles.
Right.
Just,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
or one of these little things that are,
Yeah.
you know, don't you think that's
I love that. That's a beautiful idea for a Christmas card.
Holy are you, eternal, free, and whole,
Mm-hmm.
at peace forever in the heart of God.
Yes.
That's kind of a nice Christmas
Absolutely. Believe me, I'd love to receive a holiday card that said that. Exactly. And send one to yourself too. All right, you guys. So we're going to pass around the love offering basket. It's right here if somebody will grab that. Thank you so much for your love offerings. The Miracle Center profoundly appreciates it. And you guys watching online, if you would like to make a financial expression of appreciation for the Miracle Center, and then go to the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center website and just hit donate. And that's RockyMountainMiracleCenter.org. So thank you for your support. Okay, hold on, you guys. Hold on. Let me finish up. All right. So thank you all for your love offering. Thank you for helping to keep this center alive and the lights on, and truly thank you. You are giving a great gift to the world by supporting this Miracle Center. You know, think of all the ideas that we're sending out to the world to keep it safe. And so truly, whatever you offer to the Miracle Center is a benefit to the world. So thank you for that. And thank you guys as well. So check out the Miracle Center website, RockyMountainMiracleCenter.org, and you can find out who's teaching each Sunday and what's going on here, and you can support it. And thank you for all your support of the Miracle Center. Truly, all your contributions have been so helpful. Thank you. All right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to just do it. Okay.
When you're talking about taking the bite of the apple and guilt, isn't that is that the other thing where God gave us free will? God gave us free will to bite the apple?
Yeah. Yes.
Am I thinking monkey mind?
No, it's that when we separated from God, then now choice became actually our salvation, our way back, right? When we left God, then we made up choices. Now there's a choice. Since we made up a fantasy alternative to God, now we have a choice. Now decisions are, part of our way back. So,
There's a story. Neil Donald Walsh, in his conversation with God, he asked God, why did you throw Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden? God said, I never did.
Exactly.
I think it's the same with the apple.
Absolutely. It was just total projection.
It's good.
Yeah, we kicked ourselves out of the Garden of Eden.
Do you know, I had a lovely Jewish man yesterday, and he said, I gave him, I give clients these little apples, or whatever, instead of candy. And he said that he was listening to his rabbi, and God gave us, the way he said it, God gave us these beautiful colors, these beautiful fruits for us to enjoy. And the way he said it was so deep and spiritual and beautiful with his accent, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
God gave us God gave us things to enjoy.
Yes.
Can I just add a clarification? The Bible talks about the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yes.
Good and evil do not exist as polarities in heaven.
Right.
It is a false choice.
Yes, exactly.
The tree of knowledge of good and evil is a false choice.
Right.
So there's just the tree of good.
That's right.
There's just the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
And knowledge, when we're in direct communication with God, knows nothing of the concept of evil.
Exactly. That's right. You guys are amazing. You guys are amazing. I love teaching with you guys. Truly. I love it. I love it. Such a beautiful co-creation that we do when we come together.
Nothing unreal exists.
Right.
All right, you guys. So now we're just going to do like 2 minutes of just letting this truth, this judgment on ourselves. We're going to practice hearing it, and we're going to practice accepting it. Because remember, that's why we're here. That's why we're here, is to hear love's judgment on us and to practice accepting it. That's why we're here. So, beautiful. So I want you to, for a moment, just bring to your awareness somewhere where you are not at peace in your experience, and then we're going to take the truth and we're going to apply it so that negative experience that comes from judgment can be replaced, be undone. So I want you to bring to your awareness a place in your experience right now where you are not at peace. All right, now I want you to tell yourself, this lack of peace is coming from me attempting to take God's role from God and judge. This lack of peace, this upset, this problem has come from my judgment of guilt on myself or another. This problem is coming from me attempting to play God, be God, and produce guilt for myself, which has attracted this form of punishment. This problem is coming from me being the judge of myself or another. But now, in this situation, this problem, I want you to now stand aside. I want you in this situation to learn to be quiet. I want you to imagine yourself being quiet in this situation. In this situation, stand aside in quiet listening. Where you were judging, now you learn to be quiet. Stand aside in quiet listening and wait for God's judgment, love's judgment on yourself, on the situation, on the other person. And now let's do that. And breathe. And now I want you to hear again, in this situation where you had been judging and suffering, now I want you to hear God's judgment on you and them. You are holy. You are eternal. You are free. And you are complete. and you are at peace forever in the heart of God. That's what you really are. That's where you really are. And I want you to feel what it feels like to accept this judgment on yourself. How would you feel if you accepted that? How would you feel if you believed it? Let's practice feeling that way right now. You're going to feel it in the end anyway. Why not now? I am holy. I am eternal. I am free. I am complete. I am at peace forever in the heart of God. Notice how it feels to hear the truth about yourself. Notice how it feels to practice accepting it. All right, beautiful. And when you're ready to take a breath and bring your awareness back to the room. All right, beautiful. Way to set yourselves free. Way to help the world be safer. Way to keep the world safe. Good job. Good job, guys.
Thank you, Anna.
I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you.